A brazen smash and grab jewelry store robbery caught on camera.
Tonight, a violent scene unfolds inside a GTA mall. The eyewitness accounts to a shocking crime. Good evening. Customers watched in horror the robbery occurring during mall hours.
Tonight, Peel police have one suspect in custody, but two others were able to get away. CTV's Allison Hurst is live at Brampton City Center with tonight's top story.
Witnesses tell us the sound of the display cases smashing was like a gunshot or firecrackers, and a few of them hid in the back of their stores, terrified as the alleged robbery took place. A video posted to the White Carrot store's Instagram account shows a person wearing a gray sweater casually filling a bag. Seconds later, that person can be seen swinging what appears to be a hammer, smashing display cases inside a jewelry store.
It was a bang, so I literally thought like there's fireworks going on. So it was that loud, and they were breaking the glasses very badly.
Then security arrives, shouting at them. Moments later, another person in a sweatshirt and mask appears behind the display. Amisha Puri was working on her own in a store next door at the time.
I had customers in store, and more people came in from the other store. So I closed the door, and we all were inside.
As the video continues, the suspect jumps onto the display case before more security officers arrive. They grab him, dragging him out of the store, while two others take off running.
There's like shattered glass everywhere on the floor.
Peel Regional Police say they were called around 6:30 yesterday evening and arrived to find one suspect detained.
I've seen two guards have this one individual arrested from behind on his handcuffs.
A mall spokesperson says our security team's quick response ensured that nobody was injured, while the Peel Regional Police arrived on site shortly after and made an arrest.
3 suspects entered the store armed with hammers, and they made a demand for merchandise in the store, and subsequently ended up smashing some of the display cases, taking some of the property.
18-year-old Evan Sosa Reyes has been charged with robbery and wearing a disguise, but Peel police say 2 other suspects fled with a substantial quantity of goods.
That was obviously a very traumatic incident.
Officers say there have been 5 incidents at the store from 2017 to 2023, but can't confirm if they're connected. No one from the store responded to requests for comment, but there were staff inside this afternoon sweeping up the glass. When posting the video to social media, the store said that they want that video to be shared. They want everyone to stay safe, and they're asking for prayers for the White Carrot family. The police still say they don't have any description for the 2 suspects who fled. Reporting live, I'm Allison Hurst. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Allison. There's a major development tonight in the case of an Ontario woman who disappeared nearly 2 years ago from a Wasaga Beach home.
Charges against the former boyfriend of Elnaz Hajtamiri have been upgraded from kidnapping to first-degree murder. Mohammed Lilo and several others had been charged with her alleged abduction. Detectives say Hajtamiri was forcibly dragged by 3 suspects and put into a white Lexus SUV. She hasn't been heard from since, and a body has never been found. While investigators haven't confirmed Hajtamiri's death, Lilo is now charged with first-degree murder on direct indictment by the Attorney General. His next court appearance is scheduled for December 15th.
And still to come tonight, a Canada-wide warrant for a man accused of killing. The search for him, believed to be connected to the murder of Shamar Powell Flowers. New details just ahead.
We turn to a scene of chaos at Pearson Airport today and the seemingly simple mistake that caused the whole thing.
Flights delayed and passengers left stranded, all because they were led through a wrong door. CTV Sean Leithong is live at Pearson tonight to explain. Sean.
Well, Nathan and Michelle, many of the passengers who got off their flight from Calgary this morning thought they were going to walk here to the domestic arrivals area. Instead, they were led through a door that led them into an area where people had already cleared customs to fly to the United States, and that caused a big problem. Sitting inside the airport, stuck for hours, all because they were led through the wrong door.
Everybody's pretty much just staying held and not moving at all. You can kind of see behind me. Everything. Yeah, no one's really moving.
A Lynx Air flight from Calgary to Toronto landed before 7 this morning, and according to the GTAA, as passengers deplaned, instead of being led to the domestic area, a ground handler led them into an area where passengers have already cleared customs waiting to fly to the U.S.
Those outbound passengers going to the U.S. have all cleared U.S. Customs and Immigration. So theoretically, those passengers that are sitting at Pearson Airport are literally sitting in a U.S. territory.
As officials decided how to handle a group of people walking into U.S. territory without clearing security, passengers were not permitted to leave the area, causing a knock-on effect that delayed travel for thousands.
We're trying to figure out more about what's going on, but customs is here, the police is here, and no one's able to move in or out.
Michael Kaluva was supposed to connect to an 8:30 a.m. flight to Miami. Instead, he was still at Pearson after 9 a.m., surrounded by many other passengers.
That tells you the level of diligence that people working at an airport have to have. You have to be on the ball 24/7 to know exactly what you're doing, to follow instructions later. Otherwise, we saw the consequences of that this morning.
Officials at the GTAA, the airlines, and U.S. Border Services quickly worked out a plan.
So what this means for us is we have passengers now that U.S. Customs needs to screen properly before they can continue on their way.
Customers began being rescanned just before 10 a.m., with the delays worked through before the noon hour. In a statement, a spokesperson from Lynx Air said, "We work with a separate ground services operator that is accountable for gate services once our aircraft lands. We are actively in contact with both the GTAA and the ground handling company to investigate what has happened and how this situation could have occurred." Now, while this has worked through the system, there are still many delays. Here in the domestic area, about half the flights on the border delayed. Over in international, it's much the same. Reporting live, I'm Sean Neathong. Nathan and Michelle, send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Sean. Investigators are working to figure out the cause of a 5-alarm fire at an industrial building in the city's West End. Massive flames broke out at a site near Rogers and Weston Road just before 10:30 this morning. By around 4 this afternoon, crews say the fire was largely contained. Nearby schools were placed in a temporary hold and secure because of the plumes of smoke. No injuries have been reported.
And the Ministry of Labor is investigating after 4 workers were injured at a construction site in Burlington. It happened just before 9 this morning at a former high school on New Street. The workers were trapped when the ceiling collapsed during an asbestos removal. They were sent to hospital with non-life-threatening injuries. Coming up, awaiting a verdict in the Peter Nygard trial. The jury back at it for another day, deliberating the former fashion mogul's fate. We'll have the latest from the courthouse.
But first, let's take a live look outside tonight. What a difference compared to this time yesterday. We have dry conditions and temperatures are on the mild side tonight. Lindsay Morrison is here with our first look at the forecast. Lindsay.
And Nathan, it has been windy today, though. That's the one bit of active weather that we've been dealing with. But technically, we've been benefiting from those winds. It is, there you go. We just went from 9 degrees to 7 degrees in the city of Toronto. Still 11 in the Burlington area. Quite mild around the GTA, but a little bit cooler still for areas to the north. Muskoka and over toward Ottawa. Thanks in part to these westerly winds that are quite gusty. They're leading to a little bit of lake effect rain as well as lake effect snow for some. For us here locally, we are expecting a dry night and an overnight low of about 4 degrees. Now, the next couple of days looking pretty good. We're going to take you through the weekend forecast coming up. For now, though, Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Lindsay. We have new details on the deadly shooting of a man in Greektown over the summer.
29-year-old Shamar Powell Flowers was killed, and tonight investigators have stepped up their efforts to catch one of the outstanding suspects in the case. CTV's Beth McDonnell joins us live with the story tonight. Beth.
Michelle, Toronto police have issued a Canada-wide warrant for a man wanted on second-degree murder. At a vigil days after his killing, they came in the hundreds, lighting candles and writing messages. The 29-year-old's grief-stricken mother describing Shamar Powell Flowers as inspirational and selfless, a hard worker who made time for family.
We have made attempts to locate this individual. We have spoken with people that are familiar with him.
Today, Toronto police announced a Canada-wide warrant for one of 2 men they believe are responsible for Powell Flowers' death, 35-year-old Michael Beebe.
I believe that both individuals have equal responsibility for his death, and as a result, both are being charged with second-degree murder.
The other suspect was arrested and charged in August. Police say the investigation led them to discover Beebe, who has a large tattoo of the Grim Reaper on his right abdomen, and are calling on him to turn himself in. Officers say Beebe is known to frequent the Danforth and Scarborough areas and believe he's still in the city. On July 23rd, around 3:30 in the morning, police say two groups of people near Danforth and Carlaw got into an altercation. One group was in a vehicle, the other including Powell Flowers on the street.
And as a result of that, Mr. Powell Flowers intervened and was shot in that process.
You robbed me of everything I have.
It's a devastating loss for his mother. He was the youngest of 6. She wants justice to prevail for her son, a man missed by many. Police say Bibi should be considered armed and dangerous. They're asking anyone with information on his whereabouts to contact police or Crime Stoppers anonymously. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. And Toronto police have identified a man shot and killed in an underground parking garage in downtown Toronto last night. Police were called to the area of Yonge and Gerrard just after 7. The victim was found suffering from gunshot wounds and pronounced dead at the scene.
He's been identified as 27-year-old Parmveer Chahil of Windsor. Police say the suspect fled the scene in a newer model silver SUV. Investigators believe the shooting was targeted.
Toronto police are asking for the public's help as they investigate a sexual assault in the city's East End. It's alleged on Saturday night, this suspect broke into a home near Salmon Avenue and Greenwood Avenue. Police allege he sexually assaulted a woman while armed with a knife. 34-year-old Daryl Boyd Finch is wanted for sexual assault with a weapon.
An update on a case we told you about yesterday. Police had been searching for this man in connection with the sexual assault on the subway. He was accused of following the victim into an elevator at Sherbourne Station and assaulting them last Thursday. Police say 44-year-old Majdi Idris Mohammed was arrested Wednesday and charged with sexual assault.
Jurors spent the day deliberating the fate of Peter Nygaard, and still no verdict tonight.
The former fashion mogul is accused of 5 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of forcible confinement. CTV's John Musselman's been covering Nygaard's trial and joins us live from the University Avenue Courthouse. John.
Well, Nathan, they're still deliberating at this hour. They started yesterday around 3:30. They've been going all day. Our information is they'll probably go until about 7:15 tonight, and then they'll call it a night and resume in the morning. But there could be some kind of break between now and 7:15. We just do not know. Now, yesterday, the jury was given final instructions by the judge, telling them to review all of the testimony carefully, including that of Mr. Nygaard, who we all know did take the stand in his own defense, saying that these allegations were not true and it was not something he would do. Now, the complainants did testify that they were lured to his headquarters on Niagara Street with promises of tours and possible career opportunities, and that's where they were sexually assaulted. Nygaard has pleaded not guilty to 5 counts of sexual assault and 1 count of forcible confinement. And again, the jury is still working away here. It's hard to predict what could happen, but we will be standing by if anything happens. Reporting live, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, John. 11 people were taken to hospital after a school bus crashed into a home in Burnaby, British Columbia. BC Emergency Services says it sent several ambulances to the scene just before 8 a.m. local time. The yellow school bus could be seen wedged into the front of the home. RCMP says some children were still being checked out, but their injuries appear to be minor. The cause of the crash is still under investigation.
Reports of hate-motivated crime have gone way up since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. In Montreal, 2 Jewish schools were hit by bullets overnight. Police say nobody was hurt, but they are actively investigating. CTV Genevieve Beauchemin has the latest.
When students and staff arrived at the school here at Talmud Torah, what they saw was this bullet hole right through the front door here. Frightening sight, and police were called. There was also a bullet hole in another window, as well as shell casings here. But when police were here, they received a second call. There was another school 3 kilometers away that was also targeted. There too, there was a bullet hole through the front door. Now, that has frightened many people in the community. Some parents were picking up their children here earlier. Community leaders are saying that they want more security around buildings like this, that there's been an escalation of violence over the past few days, including the firebombing of a synagogue, the altercation at Concordia University, and now this. Education minister here in Quebec has been calling this what he says is a form of terrorism, and they're saying that there should be appealing for calm here. Genevieve Beauchemin, CTV News, Montreal.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau condemned the incidents in Montreal, saying Canadians can disagree, but acts of hate and violence are unacceptable.
No matter how strongly felt your fears or convictions are, it doesn't give you the right to do what we saw yesterday at Concordia or in the shots fired at Jewish schools today in Montreal. These are not who we are.
Similar sentiments were shared by Montreal's mayor and Quebec's premier, who both called for those responsible to be held to account.
Turning to the latest overseas, there was relief for 32 Canadians today as the Rafah Gate to Egypt opened up, enabling their long-awaited exit from Gaza.
This comes as Israel commits to pauses in fighting in parts of the territory. CTV's Heather Wright takes us through today's developments.
After being closed on Wednesday, the Rafah border crossing in southern Gaza into Egypt reopened today. 40 Canadians had been on yesterday's list to cross. 32 were able to leave, but hundreds more remain.
We try to influence as much as possible the possibility of having more Canadians, permanent residents and their family members on the list. So I can, assure you and assure your viewers that we're not sparing any effort to do that.
Today, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad posted videos showing 2 hostages, a woman in her 70s and a teenage boy, offering to release them if certain measures are met. The Israelis slammed the video as psychological warfare. Israel has rejected calls for a ceasefire without the release of the 240 hostages being held in Gaza, but today agreed to what it is calling tactical localized pauses. Neighborhoods in Gaza will be given several hours' notice that there will be a pause to fighting, allowing people in the north time to flee south. An estimated 50,000 Gazans left the north on Wednesday, many traveling by foot. What does it look like behind us, this woman says? Destruction and death. Israel insists it will not go any further than these pauses, rejecting any ceasefire without the release of the 240 hostages being held by Hamas, a position supported by the United States.
General ceasefire means everybody lays their arms down and you sort of talk about the end of this conflict. To do that right now would be a benefit to Hamas. It would give them time to resource plan and execute additional attacks. It would also legitimize what they did on October 7th.
Aid trucks were also allowed to cross into Gaza today, but at a meeting in Paris, several NGOs called for a ceasefire, saying without one, delivering aid is hopeless. There cannot be humanitarian aid for dead people, the head of Oxfam said. Gaza's people need to stay alive.
Today, the UN said the aid being delivered into Gaza is inadequate. Right now, the only way in or out of the territory is through the Rafah border crossing. The UN wants to see all crossings reopened to get aid in more quickly. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
Back here at home, protesters staged a sit-in inside Union Station at the height of the morning rush to draw attention to the situation in Gaza. Demonstrators called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. This is part of a series of global protests that have already taken place in New York, London, and Amsterdam.
And there were more calls today to help the hostages taken by Hamas just over a month ago. A coalition of doctors demanding action in the form of medical aid. CTV's Mike Walker reports.
Holding pictures of hostages held by Hamas, calling out their names one by one. More than 100 healthcare workers rallying on University Avenue, demanding immediate intervention from the Red Cross.
The Red Cross is a neutral mediator, and we held them responsible for the lives of the kidnapped because they are the only one who can actually have the right to go there and bring them home.
Israel's military says there are some 240 people kidnapped by Hamas in the October 7th attack. Healthcare workers want the Red Cross to provide medical attention to hostages.
Is to just do what is within its mandate, which is check on the hostages. We have suckling infants, young toddlers, and children. I don't know how children live in captivity.
And also push for their release.
The International Committee of the Red Cross has an obligation to try to obtain their release.
38 of them are children. 51 of them are elderly. They are the ones that we can still save.
Aaron Brodach's sister-in-law and her 3 children are among the hostages.
We don't know if they're together. We don't know if they're hurt.
He spoke with Red Cross officials 2 weeks ago in Washington as part of the delegation calling for their release and action from other countries, including Canada.
They depend on Hamas to get to the hostages. That's tough, but they can apply pressure. They can apply pressure on other countries that have the ability to apply pressure on Hamas.
The International Committee of the Red Cross has called for the release of hostages. It has also stated it's ready to provide them humanitarian aid and help facilitate their release.
It's a human rights issue. This is not just 200 physicians who gathered here today to ask. This is a cry all over the world.
These healthcare workers joining the course of calls from medical professionals around the world today. Similar demonstrations were held outside Red Cross offices in Israel, the UK, and United States. Mike Walker, CTV News.
The federal government has set a date for its next major update on the country's finances. Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland says she'll table the 2023 Fall Economic Statement on Tuesday, November 21st. In the face of a slowing economy, Freeland said issues like jobs, housing, and affordability will be the focus of the update. Ottawa's deficit for the last fiscal year came in at just over $35 billion, $7.7 billion lower than expected.
It's been a prominent year for labor disputes as unions and employers face off in a time of higher costs and tighter budgets.
Now, the federal Liberals have tabled new legislation stopping the hiring of replacement workers during a strike. CTV's Jeremy Sharon has more.
A Liberal promise to the NDP today fulfilled.
Today is about keeping parties focused on the table and providing more stability and certainty for the economy.
Labour Minister Seamus O'Regan tabling new anti-scab legislation that would ban the use of replacement workers during a strike in federally regulated industries.
That means no new contractors, no members of the bargaining unit crossing the picket line.
After decades of battle, after decades of fighting, we are finally going to see a government bill that we forced to make happen that's going to ban scab workers in our country.
This legislation follows through on the Liberals' commitment to the NDP and its confidence in supply deal, keeping the Liberals in power.
This is about giving power to workers, taking away power from greedy CEOs and making sure workers can fight to get a fair share of the profits that they create with their own labor.
The legislation would include exemptions for health and safety and serious environmental reasons to ensure workplaces are kept safe.
The legislation will lead to less labor disruptions, fewer work stoppages, and will help build a more balanced economy.
If an employer were to break the new law, the fine, $100,000 a day.
Certainly our clients won't be happy to see this, and we think it adds further challenges to an already very difficult bargaining dynamic.
But there is pushback from within the business sector, calling this an unfair advantage to unions.
We can expect more strikes, more lockouts, and longer ones as a result of a ban on replacement workers.
Now, with NDP support, this bill is expected to pass in the House, but Minister O'Regan said today it would take at least 18 months to implement. Jeremy Sharon, CTV News, Ottawa.
To provincial politics and a development in the Ontario Liberal leadership race.
The party is set to choose a new leader next month, and today 2 contenders announced they're teaming up to take on the perceived frontrunner. CTV News Queen's Park Bureau Chief Siobhan Morris joins us live with the details. Siobhan.
Well, Nate Erskine-Smith and Yasser Naqvi say they're completing each other's sentences at this point, so they think it makes sense to team up for the good of the party. Ontario Liberals start voting for their new leader in a little over 2 weeks. Now 2 of the candidates are teaming up in a way.
I trust Yasser to lead this party if I'm unsuccessful, and he's second on my ballot.
Nate Erskine-Smith and Yasser Naqvi are urging their supporters to pick the other guy as their second choice. It's being seen as a way to try and take down perceived frontrunner Bonnie Crombie.
No one is winning this on first ballot, and I think it's really important that people know as to how people like Nate and I are going to be voting, because that question is being asked of us.
And these 2 Liberal MPs say they found a lot of common ground.
We've been at Q&A sessions where we started ending each other's sentences.
The pair is trying to downplay this as a beat Crombie tactic.
It's less about one individual getting put in place. This is about the direction for our party and how we set ourselves up for success going forward.
But Erskine Smith has expressed concerns about some of Crombie's campaign comments.
Are we going to earn the trust of progressive voters and set ourselves up to win? And I know, when I think about the party that I want to build, I know that we share those values.
Today, Crombie expressed confusion with the plan and says she doesn't think Liberals want to be told how to vote. The other Liberal leadership candidate, Ted Hsu, says he was approached to possibly be part of this plan, but says that he didn't sign on. He didn't think that it makes sense for the fresh start he thinks the party needs. Liberals will name their next leader on December 2nd. Reporting live from Queen's Park, I'm Siobhan Morris. Nathan, back to you.
All right, thank you, Siobhan. Also at Queen's Park, the Ford government says it will put forward legislation banning a requirement often seen on job listings, Canadian work experience. Ontario would be the first province to take this step if the proposal passes. The province says the new rules would make it easier for newcomers to fill labor shortages. Labor Minister David Piccini said too many immigrants find themselves working in, quote, dead-end jobs they're overqualified for just because their previous work was done abroad.
Coming up, actors get the green light to get back to work. SAG-AFTRA makes a tentative deal with Hollywood studios, putting an end to the historic strike.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, are you planning to book a hotel room anytime soon? If you're booking online, be careful. A Toronto man fulfilled his dream of going to the World Cup last year, but was double charged for a very expensive stay. We investigate. I'll have my report just ahead.
Looking ahead to the weekend, if you're heading to any Remembrance Day ceremonies on Saturday morning, you're going to want to dress for a temperature of 2 degrees and the conditions being a mix of sun and cloud. Meanwhile, Sunday is Diwali. Once again, looking at a temperature around 2 for the evening hours. Overall, though, it's not a bad weekend, and we are looking at a warming trend into next week. We're going to talk about that coming up. And stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
When booking a hotel room online, you have to be careful you don't use expensive third-party websites or accidentally pay in U.S. rather than Canadian dollars.
You also have to watch out for computer glitches that could cause you to be double charged for your hotel stay. Pat Foran has this Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Michelle. And Nathan, a Toronto man says it was his dream to go to the World Cup in Qatar, which took place almost 1 year ago. It was an expensive trip, but it was even more pricey when he was double billed for his accommodations.
I definitely want to indulge in the experience, so to speak, with going to the World Cup.
Brian Palma of Toronto is a huge soccer fan and decided last November he wanted to see Canada play in the World Cup in Qatar. Hotel accommodations were very pricey, and one of the most inexpensive places he could find to stay was on a docked cruise ship. He booked through Qatar accommodations, but instead of charging him once, he was charged 4 times.
It was then when they said, yeah, it's been charged 4 times, refunded twice, but you still have a double charge on it.
Palma says he agreed to pay almost $7,600 for 1 week on the cruise ship, but he was also improperly charged an additional $7,600. He still had a great time at the World Cup cheering for Canada, but he became increasingly frustrated after dozens of emails and phone calls. He couldn't get the extra charge removed.
Like, we're not talking a couple $100. We're talking close to $7,600. I'm not paying twice because of a glitch on Qatar accommodations.
CTV News reached out to Qatar accommodations, but it seems Palma was caught between the cruise ship, the booking site, and his credit card. Adding to the problem was the room was considered non-refundable, even though he was accidentally charged twice. Palma used a CIBC credit card. CTV News reached out to CIBC, and a spokesperson said, recognizing this is an unfortunate situation, we worked with our client to resolve this matter after the dispute could not be settled with the merchant. So after almost 1 year of trying to get his money back, Palma finally got a refund of almost $7,600, which was great news for him.
There's been a lot of sleepless nights. Thank you, CTV News. You made my day.
And if you're overcharged by a hotel, you should dispute it right away. If you can, speak with the hotel manager while you're there. If you can't get it resolved, contact your credit card company to seek a refund. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
It's a sad truth. We know it won't be long before we see scenes like this one. Is your vehicle ready for winter? Police and CAA were at the Scarborough Collision Reporting Center reminding people to be ready for driving in less than ideal conditions.
You got to give yourself some time. You have to understand how the conditions are different from what you're used to and drive accordingly. It's pretty simple.
Drivers are also encouraged to get winter tires and keep a full tank of gas in case you need to run the car during a roadside emergency. And yesterday, some cars had a little layer of ice. Some areas got some snow. So we were reminded that winter isn't too far off. But I think today is kind of a reprieve. It's relatively mild.
Yeah, we got a break today, but you're right. It is around the corner. I got my winter tires, last week. I'm glad I did.
Me too. Mine are on as well. And all you have to do is look at what the weather was like today in places like Ottawa and Montreal. Not that far from here, really. They had snow on the ground this morning. We, on the other hand, though, are in for a little bit of a warming trend as we make our way through the next 7 days. And there's not a whole lot of active weather to speak of, so perhaps that's some good news for you, too. Weather is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train. Now, not everyone is completely in the clear here. You'll notice that it's still cool and unsettled around Georgian Bay, the Bruce Peninsula, the northern end of Lake Simcoe, and even in through portions of Muskoka, the north end especially. Some light snow continues to fall at this hour. We'll widen things out a bit here to show you. There's the system that brought us ice pellets, freezing rain, and yes, thunderstorms yesterday, along with snow to areas further north. There is still a freezing drizzle advisory in place for parts of eastern Ontario, but for the most part, we are finally saying goodbye to this episode of active weather. Behind it, still potential for a few lake effect rain showers or flurries. I'm going to pause our forecast radar at about 8 o'clock tomorrow morning just to show you that we are expecting sunshine. As the day goes on, though, we'll see more of those lake effect showers start to develop. Going to call it about a 30% chance of some scattered wet weather in and around Toronto, but the majority of the region is going to remain dry tomorrow. We will, however, get that increase in cloud. The winds are going to change direction into Saturday. That's some lake effect cloud, maybe a little bit of lake effect snow to the south of Georgian Bay, around Collingwood, for example. Overall, it's not a bad looking day for us in the GTA. However, thanks to that northerly flow, it's going to be feeling a little bit cooler. Winds today have been coming out of the west. They're going to strengthen again into tomorrow afternoon, maybe gusting close to about 50 kilometers per hour. Again, they do change direction into Saturday, but they are expected to ease at that point too. 7 degrees currently in Toronto. It's 10 in Windsor, but it's only 1 in Sudbury, -4 in Moosonee. Here's a look at tonight's lows, around 4 degrees for us in the city of Toronto. That's a little on the warm side, just slightly above seasonal. Similar situation for tomorrow afternoon. 9 is what we're forecasting. 8 is our seasonal average. At times there could be more cloud than sun, but overall it's looking like a pretty pleasant day. Just again, a little bit windy. Here's the 7-day forecast. Weekend is calm, but a little cool. Daytime highs of 3 degrees both days. And then here comes the warming trend. Check out Wednesday and Thursday of next week in the double digits or maybe even teen temperatures. That's your look at the forecast for now. Nathan, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. Also tonight, he left a massive footprint in the news business, and now he'll be inducted in Oshawa's Walk of Fame. Former CTV News anchor Ken Shaw is honored for his work in journalism and the community.
It's not your typical Hollywood ending, but after nearly 120 days on the picket lines, U.S. film and TV actors have agreed to end their strike.
As production ramps back up, SAG-AFTRA members say they're relieved to be heading back on set.
It was a great feeling to know that we were able to cut a deal.
We've been working so hard. We've been out there every day, and we've become a family, but also, we want to get back to work.
The actors' strike overlapped for some time with the Hollywood writers' strike as they push for guarantees on pay and artificial intelligence. SAG-AFTRA members still have to ratify the deal, valued at more than $1.3 billion Canadian. Union President Fran Drescher says studios and streaming services knew they had to make some compromises to end the dispute.
It's up to them to concede certain things so that we can feel honored and respected and protected and compensated.
The studio said they were pleased to have reached a tentative agreement, which means A-list actors can go back to promoting their projects. Several film and TV productions here in Canada feature SAG-AFTRA members, and they'll be able to resume filming as well.
Canadian civil rights activist Viola Desmond was celebrated at the Tiff Bell Lightbox last night.
Viola Desmond Cinema.
A cinema at the Film Centre has been named after Desmond. Back in November of 1946, the Halifax-born businesswoman was charged and put in jail for sitting in the whites-only section of a theatre in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia. The incident was widely publicized at the time and helped spark the modern civil rights movement in Canada.
Fans counting down the days until Beyoncé's concert film hits theaters got another preview today.
It's a new birth. I hope you feel liberated.
The singer shared a second trailer for her Renaissance Tour film. It captures moments from her shows across Europe and North America this year. Renaissance, a film by Beyoncé, debuts December 1st.
What is that?
And Pixar is out with the teaser trailer for the upcoming sequel to Inside Out. The original film starred colorful characters symbolizing a young girl's emotions, and the new version introduces a new one, Anxiety, voiced by Maya Hawke. Inside Out 2 is out next summer.
Stars Tonight is brought to you by Lastman's Bad Boy. Who's better? Nobody.
After the break, Toronto Council wants more mental health experts on the front lines responding to crisis calls instead of police. The unanimous vote at City Hall today.
On the next CP24 breakfast.
Honoring heroes past and present, tomorrow we'll be paying tribute to all veterans for their courage, sacrifice, and service.
CP24 breakfast up first at 5:30.
It was a bang, so I literally thought like there's fireworks going on, so it was that loud.
Updating our top stories, video has surfaced online of what police describe as a brazen smash and grab robbery. It happened at a jewelry store inside Brampton's Bramalea City Centre around 6:30 yesterday evening. Police say 3 suspects walked in wearing disguises, demanded money, and smashed display cases with hammers. 1 is in custody, but 2 others were able to get away.
We have made attempts to locate this individual. We have spoken with people that are familiar with him.
Toronto police have issued a Canada-wide arrest warrant for 35-year-old Michael Beebe. He's wanted in connection with a deadly shooting over the summer. 29-year-old Shamar Powell Flowers was killed near Danforth and Carlaw on June 23rd after he and his friends got into an altercation with 2 people in a vehicle.
Everybody's pretty much just staying held and not moving at all. You can kind of see.
Regular operations have resumed at Pearson Airport after passengers were grounded this morning. Officials say a worker directed passengers arriving from a flight to the wrong area of the airport. They were then mixed into a larger group, which disrupted flights for several hours.
Remember to keep up to date day and night through our website, ctvnewstoronto.ca, and by downloading the CTV News app. And if you have a news tip, photos, or video of breaking news, let us know.
In business news, a senior Bank of Canada official gave a warning to Canadians. Prepare for the possibility interest rates stay higher for longer. BNN Bloomberg's Jacqueline Hansen has those details.
The senior deputy governor of the Bank of Canada says it might be tempting to think interest rates will go back to ultra-low levels, but she says there are reasons to believe they won't. Carolyn Rogers pointed to structural changes in the economy and geopolitical uncertainty as potentially having lasting impacts on inflation. She said Canadians should be proactive and plan for a future where interest rates may be higher than they've been over the past 15 years. Though she urged she is not predicting that rates will be higher for longer, just raising awareness of the possibility. Let's take a look at some of the closing market numbers for today. The Canadian dollar is trading lower just slightly to 72.4 cents U.S. West Texas Intermediate oil gained about 40 cents to $75.75 U.S. a barrel. And Western Canadian Select declined about 40 cents to roughly $48 U.S. a barrel. As for stock markets, the TSX gained just 57 points to end the day at 19,587.41. That is the latest in business. I'm Jacqueline Hansen of BNN Bloomberg.
The city's community crisis service has been given the green light to expand. Toronto City Council voted unanimously today to extend the program citywide. The 24/7 service was launched last year in 4 pilot zones as a non-police-led response to people experiencing mental health crises. Staff reported the service has successfully diverted 78% of calls received from 911.
We need trained nurses, counselors to appear on the scene without sirens, without guns, and to calm people down and give them the support they need. In the long run, it saves a heck of a lot of money rather than having the police trying to deal with these incredibly difficult situations all the time.
City councilors say the move frees up police and other emergency services to respond to other types of incidents.
Meanwhile, Toronto City Council has passed new zoning bylaws making it easier for bars and restaurants to use their outdoor space. Since the start of Cafe TO in 2020, those venues have been cleared to use parking spots and other private property to increase outdoor dining room. That policy is now permanent, and in a new initiative, eligible patios can also be activated for entertainment with less red tape, as long as certain requirements are met.
In sports, the Raptors took down the Mavericks in Dallas last night.
That's 27. OG corner 3. Oh, my!
The Raptors trailed after the first quarter, but managed to mount a comeback. They ended up winning the game 127-116. The team will be back on the court Saturday to take on the Boston Celtics.
He's got a break. They've tried a penalty. In front. Scores! Nick Robertson!
The Leafs faced off with the Ottawa Senators in the first edition of the Battle of Ontario. The Leafs tied the game in the third period. However, it was all Ottawa after that. The Sens went on to win the game 6-3. The Leafs will be back on the ice Friday to take on the Calgary Flames.
And take a look at this. If you were on the subway yesterday afternoon, you might have been riding with one of the Leafs. William Nylander was bundled up as he rode the Red Rocket, apparently on his way to the game last night.
And Toronto Argonauts quarterback Chad Kelly has earned an all-star nod. Kelly is preparing to make his first CFL playoff start as the Argos look to advance to their second straight Grey Cup. Toronto finished the regular season with a franchise-best 16 wins. The Argos take on the Montreal Alouettes in the East Final on Saturday. The Grey Cup is Sunday, November 19th in Hamilton.
Our longtime former CTV co-worker, former anchor Ken Shaw, is receiving a special honor tonight at the Oshawa Walk of Fame.
Oshawa is a great city, and it has so many great things that I can talk about, but among them is the people. And I'm being inducted tonight into this Walk of Fame with a lot of folks who have contributed an awful lot to the community out here, and I'm honored to be one of them.
Ken was, of course, here at CTV for 40 years before his retirement in 2020, and he's lived in Oshawa for 30 years. His official induction into the Walk of Fame will take place later tonight. Just ahead, planning to remember what you need to know about the many ceremonies and services happening around the city as we prepare to honor our veterans. That's coming up.
Tonight, the finale of the Hollywood actors' strike.
It was a great feeling to know that we were able to cut a deal.
The reaction and when your favorite stars and shows could return. That story and more later on CTV National News.
And a reminder, the CTV News at 6 podcast is available as a download every weeknight. And a special shout out to those of you listening to the newscast live on News Talk 1010.
Get Toronto's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
Not long after we set the clocks back, Canadians are preparing for another cornerstone of the fall calendar, Remembrance Day.
People have been donning their poppies and taking steps to honor veterans for their service ahead of official ceremonies on November 11th. There will be several official ceremonies to attend on Remembrance Day, including observances at Queen's Park starting at 10:45 a.m. Saturday. At the same time, the city's main ceremony will be getting underway at Old City Hall. But city services will also be held at 6 other locations across Toronto. Full details are on the city's website.
And Metrolink says it will offer free rides on GO Transit and the Up Express Saturday for veterans, active military members and companions, and family of deceased veterans. The TTC said it will offer free rides to current and former military members and one companion each. Trains, streetcars, and buses will pause for 2 minutes at 11 a.m. in honor and memory of Canada's fallen.
And be sure to join us on Remembrance Day. CTV National Chief News Anchor and Senior Editor Omar Sachedina will have live coverage from the National War Memorial in Ottawa. That begins at 10 a.m. on Saturday.
And Remembrance Day will be a little bit cool. I'm looking ahead to Saturday.
It's, you know what, Remembrance Day can be snowy, it can be really awful, so I think, given past years, it's not too bad.
It's not too bad. We're going to take the win of the fact that it looks like we will have some sun this weekend. So yes, dress for it being a little bit cool. Here's a look at what you need to know when it comes to the temperature story for tonight and into tomorrow. Tomorrow's high is going to be about 9 degrees, so hey, maybe you want to do some November golfing. Many courses are still open right now. You may as well take advantage. There's the weekend forecast. Daytime high of only about 3 degrees, but again, a mix of sun and cloud. We are expecting to slip below freezing overnight, and then there's a warm up in store for next week. Notice how quiet this 7-day forecast is, active weather-wise, and temperatures will be above seasonal by the middle of next week. Nathan and Michelle.
All right. Thank you, Lindsay. Be sure to join Omar Sachedina tonight at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Natalie Johnson with our next local newscast at 11:30.
In the meantime, our coverage continues anytime on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison and all of us at CTV News, thank you for watching and have a good night.